Come on, turn that fan off because it's going to pick up on it. And welcome into another Alabama tradition, past, future, and the present tradition of the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're going to talk about it. I'm Ryan Fowler. This is Mark Houston here beside me. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and a lot of great affiliates throughout the state of Alabama and some of our neighboring states. We'll talk more Alabama Crimson Tide football. We're going to look ahead to Alabama's victory over Ole Miss, 59-21, 59-21. We'll talk about that. We'll take some big takeaways. We'll have a chance to talk more Alabama Crimson Tide football. We'll get into the conversation of what needs to improve going into this bye week. We'll look ahead to Texas A&M. We'll recap it in so many different ways. We're going to give some great reaction, and we always enjoy interacting with you. You can do it on Facebook. You can find different ways to find us and communicate with us. We'll thank our affiliates as we travel throughout the afternoon. We'll also talk more Alabama Crimson Tide football. 59-31. Alabama, a historic day from Devontae Smith, setting a new record at the University of Alabama. It was a lot of fun to be able to see Devontae Smith, 5 touchdowns, Tua Tagovailoa, continuing record-setting day. You lose words to describe Tua Tagovailoa. The excellent passing percentage, even maybe as we were talking earlier, maybe not one of his better days, 26 of 36, but no doubt one of the historic days, which is, I guess, kind of good when you can have not your best day when we talk about performance, but a day that you begin to look at it and you begin to think about he could always improve the performance. But Devontae Smith, he rode the hot hand and was able to have a good day. Offensive line continues to improve. Deontay Brown getting back on the field. It was good to see number 65, that road grader out there. Let's talk about it. Mark Houston, I hope you're having an awesome day as we talk more Alabama Crimson Tide football here in T-Town.
Absolutely, Ryan. And as you say, Tua Tagovailoa, anytime you can gush over his performances. And so sometimes when you don't or you say something, the scary part about Tua is that he can improve. I mean, to me,
that is crazy.
What I walk away with from that game was the week that he probably deserved SEC Offensive Player of the Week more than any other week. He just happened to have hit all of his touchdowns to the same guy, so that guy got the nod. But even with that, when you look at it, he still has opportunity to improve.
He missed some balls.
Yeah, he missed some deep balls. But one of the things, what I love to look at is, yes, he has some improving to do, which is still crazy because he's pretty much owns the record books, and he's played the equivalent of 20 games as a starter, and the mop-up duty he had as a true freshman. But what I love, Ryan, is one of the things Tua said he was going to do, and we've not talked about it on my show. I have not heard you talk about it, and I know we've not talked about it on Alabama Tradition, is his decision-making when to use his legs versus forcing things. And his touchdown run, he had an opportunity to throw it to 2 different guys, and it would have taken a precise throw to either the tight end or to the running back, yet he chose tuck it down, get what he could, didn't know if he'd get to the end zone or not, knew he would get hit at the end of it, but yet that was the right decision in that moment. And he's done that to extend drives several times. He did it against South Carolina. And that's something that I think we hadn't seen the value of it yet because we've had close games. but there's going to be a game where we need a critical first down. Everybody's going to cover, and Tua's going to extend that drive with his legs. And he said that was something that he was learning to be better at.
Have you ever seen a player like Devontae Smith? A record-setting day. He was recognized as the SEC Offensive Player of the Week. When you look at Devontae Smith, you got to go back and you understand Devontae Smith is hanging on a lot of our living rooms. That portrait that was painted so eloquently by Daniel Moore. It was Tua Tagovailoa connecting with Devontae Smith. Big Alex Leatherwood on the outside. But Devontae Smith said that he wanted to know more. He wanted to know more when you talk about than just that play. That he wanted to define himself as more of a different type of wide receiver. That wasn't the only play that he wanted to be remembered. Look at what this guy has been able to accomplish. Pretty incredible with Devontae Smith. And we were talking with a draft analyst earlier on my show that originates out of Tuscaloosa every single day. And he said Devontae Smith could be one of those guys that was not in the first rounder going into the season, but may emerge as a first-round talent at that wide receiver position. Devontae Smith stealing a little bit of the show in T-Town.
Yeah, and how many schools, Ryan, has a third wide receiver, period?
Oh, wow.
And I put that in air quotes because it's unfair to the young man really to call him a third wide receiver, but that's what we call him, third wide receiver, who not only sets the record, but he sets the record by 50 yards. Ryan, 50 yards is a lot of yards for a third receiver on a good day, much less to break the record by 50 yards. And it wasn't, and this is what I want to highlight about it. It wasn't that Tua threw it to him and he was running wide open. His first touchdown, he broke a tackle. Okay? He broke a tackle. He got hit in stride, but he ran through the tackle. The second one, he made two guys miss and showed unbelievable balance. The third one, he made an unbelievable strength catch with his hands. And the fourth one, or I can't remember which, the one where he caught on the sideline, I can't remember the fourth.
We're losing track of touchdown receptions.
I can't remember if it was the fourth or the fifth one, but when he went up, and it was the only really deep ball, it wasn't deep, but it was deep enough, and he caught that one on the sideline, and then he kind of tiptoed, that was number 5. So each one of his catches, for the most part, he did something different that you look for in wide receivers. Balance, speed, strength, yards after catch, good hand, and so it was just an amazing day for a young man that who kind of has been forgotten since that national championship catch. He kind of fell to the wayside because even last year we talked more about Waddle than we did Smith.
Well, Devontae Smith, and I like his personality too. He's a very quiet guy. If you've ever had a chance to be around Devontae Smith, I'll never forget going into that championship locker room, had a chance to interview him after he had just won the national championship. Now listen, we know every player that was part of the goal line stand when Alabama beat Penn State. We do. We could go through and we could name every player in their position on that goal line stand. That's a play that will stand up in Alabama history for the rest of our life. We're just small removed from it. But do you look at Devontae Smith? I walked in and I asked him, I said, Devontae, do you know what you just accomplished? And he was still in awe. I mean, he was still almost like just in caught up in the moment just for a couple of minutes. But I'll never forget what Tua Tagovailoa told us. He said Devontae Smith looked at him and had the confidence to say, "Throw me the ball. I will get open. I will get open." That's the confidence that he has in his play. And so Devontae Smith is a very quiet guy. So when he talks, his words resonate with a lot of people. He spoke with us in the media room, and it was just still his teammates were calling him Hollywood and different things. It was kind of fun to see everybody kind of picking at him, but it was picking in a good way. But Devontae Smith, that quiet personality. The junior wide receiver set Alabama's single game receiving records with 274 yards, 5 touchdowns. You go in, it was a career best with 11 passes on the yards as far as the day. This is the stat that really grabbed me. 24.9 yards per reception. 24.9 yards per reception. The second best mark in a single game by a wide receiver at the University of Alabama with at least 8 catches. So there's others that have 24 or 9. but it's the number of 8, at least 8 catches. His 5 touchdowns tied an SEC single game record, while his 274 yards ranked 6th in league annuals in the history of the SEC. Became just the 6th player to score at least 2 touchdowns and go over 200 yards in a game. He accomplished that in the first half. DeVonta Smith, the SEC Offensive Player of the Game. Where does Alabama need to improve? Martin Houston, Ryan Fowler, we greatly appreciate all of our affiliates, including our flagship out of Tuscaloosa, Tide 100.9. So many different ways you can listen to this program. So many different ways we're going to connect with you. We'll talk about the negative. Where does Alabama need to improve the most going into the bye week? We'll talk about that next, right here on Alabama Tradition, the present, the future, and the current of Alabama Crimson Tide Athletics.
Join Tide legends Dante Hightower, Jonathan Allen, Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs, and many more on the legendary
Hey, look, you see, I put it on here. It just says past, present, future. You struggle with that, don't you?
Yes, I do. I say current.
Past, it's right there though. So when we go back to
Past, present.
yeah, it's right there. Look,
I'm gonna set up a Periscope.
No one like you. No one else with the life you live or body you were born with. Just you.
you gonna set up what?
I'm going to set up Periscope too.
Now remember, if you set up,
Football coming up in just a couple of seconds. We'll break down the good, the bad, the ugly on the social networks, and we'll do it right here on the radio. A lot of Nick Saban audio, a lot of things that we'll get into as we continue the conversation here on Alabama Tradition. I don't know about you, but I love to hear the $1 Million Band. It's great to be inside Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday. Alabama gets the win 59-31. There was some good, and we spent the first opening segment talking about the good, the great in DeVonta Smith, Tua Tagovailoa over 400 yards, and another record touchdown responsibility broke at the University of Alabama going past A.J. McCarron. A.J. McCarron left the University of Alabama holding 19 records. And every week I see one record that drifts away. Now, it's a different era in college football, but it's one of those, when you look at Tua Tagovailoa, it's a record-setting day for him. We greatly appreciate what he's been able to do at the University of Alabama, and we talk more about that. We spent a lot of time talking about the good. Let's talk about the negative. Let's talk about what Alabama needs to improve upon. When we talk about Bruce Feldman earlier this week, he pointed out that there is the youngest team when we talk about 7 new freshman starters at the University of Alabama. Now, you've got one on the offensive side of the football in Evan Neal. He's spending a lot of time at that left guard position. He's going to be a dominant player here at the University of Alabama. He may not be where he needs to be, but he'll continue to get better. So you go and you spend 6 starters on the defensive side of the football. In some way, some formation, when you look at Alabama, that's an area that needs to continue to improve. Martin Houston, let's talk about the what needs to improve for this Alabama football team. Just your first, if you could wave the magic wand and kind of fix something, what would you fix?
special teams.
Oh, Lord, yes. And we didn't even. I mean, we hit defense, but
you said ugly, so let's go back. That doesn't qualify as bad. That qualifies as ugly.
Oh, man.
So let's
Wow.
go to the ugly. What I would fix, Ryan, is I would solidify my starting offensive line. I still don't know exactly what we have. We're 5 games in. We added another piece to the puzzle with Deontay Brown. Nothing about his performance made me feel great, warm, and fuzzy. But the offensive line has to work on it. So that would be one thing. But the biggest thing is we have got to figure out, is it Pete Golden? Is it youth? Is it offense doesn't give them enough time? what is it
Martin,
that's
let's
wrong
go
with our
back to
defense?
Pete Golding, and I don't want to jump into you because you almost set me up on a tee there with Pete Golding. Let's go back to last year. Tosh Lapoy was the defensive play caller. That's what we assumed. Going into the season, we all threw darts at Tosh Lapoy. I am guilty as charged in Tuscaloosa of throwing darts at Tosh Lapoy. He was the defensive coordinator. He was a first-time play caller. We threw darts at Tosh Lapoy, and we threw them hard in Tuscaloosa. For folks who went to Santa Clara, it was Tosh Lapoy and no answer for Trevor Lawrence. Well, Martin, there was an article that was printed in January, February of early 2019 from Chris Lowe, ESPN, who explained that his play calling responsibility on the defensive side of the football was taken away in the early part of the month. Now, that was the month of September. It could have been at any point. It could have been the last day of September. It could have been the first game down in Orlando. Either way, Chris Lowe reported that ESPN said that his play calling responsibility was taken away. And that was Pete Golding that stepped into that role. Well, we cannot take those darts away. We threw them at Tosh Lapoy. Those same darts are now valid for Tosh Lapoy.
And probably even more so because, we were throwing darts at someone that it wasn't on in the program. And right now, Ryan, with the youth of the DC, with the inexperience of the DC, with the youth of the defense and the inexperience of the defense, and the lack of depth of the defense, it can be concerning. Right now, when I look at it, Ryan, here's my question that I don't know. And the reason I haven't just come down like, boom, Pete Golding is, I did say he's over his head on game day. I did say and see something with film and prep and all of that. On game day, he's over his head. Now, the question I'm asking is he over his head because he can't make changes? Because of the youth of his defense?
Is he trying to simplify things?
Well, not even simple. Even if it's simplified, it's still a part of the game that we don't think about, Ron. When I was a linebacker in high school, and when the offense did certain things, I came to the sideline and told the defense, the coordinator, this is what they're trying to do. We thought they were going to block this way, or we thought they were going to do this in this formation. This is what they're actually doing. I don't know that our young guys can do that. So not only do you have the fact that he's not communicating, I don't think, at a level that's at the right level, but now you also have defenders who may not be able to communicate back to him what's happening because of their youth. And the guy that we hadn't talked about is LeBron Ray. LeBron Ray was the communicator amongst that front. And then you had McMillan and Moses, the communicator. And the only place we really have a communicator that does that is Xavier McKinney. So I'm trying to, I guess what I'm in short, is it Pete Golding only, or is it the fact that even when he wants to make a change, he doesn't have the players with the experience and the communication skills to make that happen?
Can some of the problems, let me ask you, and I look at veterans who are yet to really show up statistically. Let me give Terrell Lewis a little bit of a pass, because Terrell Lewis is getting back from a knee procedure, and it was a minor one, but either way, it was a knee procedure. When you look at him, so let's give him a pass. He didn't show up with just a small bit on the statistical side of things. But go back to Raekwon Davis. Where has this guy been? Like Raekwon Davis, we're talking about a top 20 player in the NFL draft, and we're not seeing a dominant performance from Raekwon Davis. Where's he been?
And you're not, Ryan, because we have such young players that he's going to get 2 and 3 players. It's not that Raekwon Davis isn't as committed as he proclaimed to be in the offseason. I think Raekwon Davis missed his golden opportunity last year when Quentin Williams took pressure off of him. I think Raekwon Davis, if you're game planning, are you game planning around making sure that Raekwon Davis doesn't disrupt your offense, or DJ Dale or a Boydby? These centers and these guards, they can, even though DJ Dale is a awesome freshman, he is still I don't know that we're going to see a statistical year out of Raekwon Davis, but in a typical situation, Ryan, if he was drawing the attention he would have, the linebackers would be having a lights out year. The problem is our linebackers aren't good enough and mature enough to take advantage of what Raekwon is requiring. So it's having a double effect.
Number one team in college football, but if you look at Alabama, they don't think they've played their best ball yet. But what is concerning to me, when I look statistically speaking, you go through almost every defensive category and you find Alabama in the 40s and 50s. If you want to go to long plays on scrimmage, they're giving up more than they've given up. And if this trend continues, that it will be in the cycle of the Nick Saban era. If it continues. Now, they've got a way to fix this. But Alabama has yet to play a top 25 team, and there's no offenses that rank in the top 50 when you look at statistically speaking. So in other words, they've not played quality offenses, at least not statistically speaking, and Alabama's not showing up when we talk about defensive wise. So when you talk about rushing defense, 48th in the country, 134 yards per game. Passing defense, 29th in the country, 190 yards per game. Total defense, 38th in the country, 325 per game. When you talk about scoring defense, a little bit better, 13th in the country at 14.8 points per game. If you go through and you want to look at and you say, well, how about giving me yards per game? Well, some of these even fall from a different ranking if you want to look at it. But we've yet to play an offense that ranks, statistically speaking, in the top 50 in college football.
I'm probably not as down as everybody else is because I don't put too much into stat. I don't put as much into stats. I don't think as others do, especially when it comes to Alabama. Saturday, Nick Saban had a twofold purpose in Ole Miss getting those yards, Ryan. Nick Saban he left his veterans in on offense the entire game, just about. That's about as long as Tua Tagovailoa has played.
It was.
Okay, so why? Well,
He's trying to win a Heisman Trophy. No, I'm just...
Well, I've heard people say Heisman, people say because of what Jalen did. The reality of it is Nick Saban has said when the other team doesn't give up and doesn't try to stop scoring, I'm not going to stop scoring. He's always said that. So that's why he left his offense in. But why did he leave his freshmen in? Why did he leave the young defense in? For the entire second half, Ryan, he didn't. Our defense gave up 3 points in the first half. As bad as we think they played, the reality of it is if we don't fumble the ball, we go into that game, we go into halftime and they have 3 points. Then in the second half, most of those yards came on the backup. But why would Nick Saban do that? Let me tell you something, Ryan. This is bye week.
Sure.
Does it matter if Nick Saban finds a coaching point? Does it matter if Martin did it? No, it doesn't. So when they lost contain, when they got beat on the routes, when they didn't do whatever, what is Nick Saban doing with that defense right now? He has coaching points on film that he can teach the young guys and the old guys. Nick Saban knew that team was not going to beat him, and he intentionally, I'm sorry, it appeared to me that he created coaching points for bye week, Ryan. I mean, the guy is brilliant.
All right. You brought up something, okay? We have a chance to feature two-time All-American at the University of Alabama, Barrett Jones. We also had a chance in the last couple of weeks to feature GMAC, quarterback of the 2009 National Championship team. One of the things that both of those two players pointed out with us is they said that Nick Saban was doing things with his offensive line to confuse them where they would have coaching points. They literally both called it out. Both of them said it here on the show. That said that Nick Saban did it purposely to throw things at his offensive line, knowing that they couldn't handle it where he would have coaching points. This guy's brilliant. I mean, and so maybe we're all sitting here and we're looking at it going, all of this can be fixable. But there's one thing that I want to address. Martin Houston, I'm Ryan Fowler. This is Alabama Tradition. We want to thank a lot of our great affiliates, and we'll do this like WTJK. They're in Fox Sports in Jackson, Tennessee. WYEA 1290 in Childersburg. Kicks FM 100.3 in Sylacauga. WCRL, they're in Aniata, Alabama. WSBM 1340 in Muscle Shoals. 97.9 there in Florence. It is Fox Sports Shows. Greatly appreciate them. We will continue to highlight some of those as we travel. Our flagship out of Tuscaloosa, Tide 100.9. One thing that we haven't brought up that's a strong possibility. We'll do that in 3 minutes on Alabama tradition. The past, present, and current tradition of the Alabama, past, present, and future tradition of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
If you need handyman work
Hey,
done
you
around your
notice I'm
home,
not on the
let
Periscope, so I'm gonna go slide. I'm gonna go fix
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So here we go. We're on the social networks. Mark Houston and I, we're going to do some adjustments. We're live on the air. We're just throwing it up on our Periscope and our Facebook account and our YouTube account just to have a little bit of fun. We're obviously during a break. And so we're going to mention something when we come back. I want to highlight something. I'm an NFL junkie. I love college football as my number one. But there's something happening that's very close to where we are located. And I want to dive a little deeper into this. And we'll do that coming up in a couple of minutes. Appreciate you guys watching on so many different ways. Appreciate you following. A big thank you on the Twitter accounts, YouTube. Subscribe to us there, Facebook account. Find a way to like us and engage with us. We have a lot of fun. We talk a lot of Alabama Crimson Tide athletics. Mark Houston, 1992 national champion winning fullback at the University of Alabama. We both live here in Tuscaloosa. We're not in another city pretending to be Tuscaloosa. This is our home. We hear a lot of things. We try to bring you as much as we possibly can. Alabama back out of the practice field early this week. They did take a little bit of time off, but they're going to take Saturday off, but really get a focus in. We talk about Texas A&M. So we're going to be back with you in just a couple of minutes live on the air on our radio station here in Tuscaloosa and throughout the network. We'll talk some more Alabama football. Hey, Jacob, if I can get Nick Saban on assessment after 5 weeks, because we definitely want to get into the assessment part of Alabama football. So we're going to do this in a couple of different ways. We appreciate you engaging with us. And always questions, answers, comments, feedback. We love that as well. And we appreciate you guys watching.
Twitter. Is this where you live? Okay, it was in there. It just wasn't.
All right, for those who listen to my daily show in Tuscaloosa, we call it The Game with Ryan Fowler. Mark Houston does the Mark Houston Show every morning beginning at 6 a.m. And we talk a lot of Alabama football. We cover the University of Alabama, originated out of T-Town every single day. You guys know that I mentioned my Dallas Cowboys quite a bit because I'm a huge Dallas Cowboy guy. And I know the guy across the glass always gives me the thumb down, but we've won a lot of championships in my lifetime. I've had a chance to watch my team win a lot of championships. And he's given me a lot of fingers, but I don't think they're. Listen, just trust me. Go back and do the math. How many of you seen your team win? Be honest. Okay. And Martin's a little biased because he spent some time in Pittsburgh with the Steelers organization.
Ironically, I grew up a Cowboys fan and played for the Steelers, so I can kind of speak to both sides of this issue.
Okay, which one's better, the Cowboys?
Traditionally, yes.
Thank you very much. Bam, right back to you,
I mean,
Jacob.
if I had to choose, I'd go with the Cowboys. Even though I played briefly for the Steelers.
All right.
It was a business deal.
Okay.
Not a fan.
But
deal.
we understand. Listen, growing up in the 80s and 90s, they hated us. Well, they don't hate us anymore. They better love us. We're America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. So I was watching them play the Saints, and we did come up with our first loss of the season. I had a prediction of 16-0. It didn't happen. But either way, we're going to win 15. So I look at the Dallas Cowboys for a couple of minutes, going up against the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees is a Hall of Fame historic player. And one of the things that I want to point out with the New Orleans Saints is a lot of times you lose your focus when you've got a historic player like Drew Brees. He'll win it. He'll be able to pull out the New Orleans Saints out of whatever situation they're in. They depend on Drew Brees. They depend on Drew Brees. Hall of Fame football player, leading NFL passer of all time. Well, I go to Tua Tagovailoa for a couple of minutes, and I look at Tua Tagovailoa, and I ask the question, when you talk about Drew Brees going down, Drew Brees went down, what happened? The New Orleans Saints continues to win football games. Why? That team's not better without Drew Brees, but there's a different level of focus. Hypothetically, I'm asking the question, are we looking at Tua Tagovailoa being too good? In other words, his teammates lose a little focus because they know when you've got those wide receivers and you've got that quarterback at the University of Alabama, they're not dialed in at every single play. I'm just asking the question. Complacency is human nature. We all become complacent. Somebody doesn't show up with work. What happens? You tighten up and you attention to detail, and you don't let things slide that you would normally let slide. Any chance are you buying my hypothetical here with Tua Tagovailoa?
I definitely think Tua Tagovailoa is as good for the university as any player that's been here. But like post Tua Tagovailoa, whether it's due to injury or graduation or early exit, it's going to be interesting to see. Within a game, Tua Tagovailoa has the ability to be really great or really negative towards a team. And I know that sounds crazy, but Ryan, what do we do when there's tragedy as a nation? What did Tuscaloosa do?
We grouped together.
What did Tuscaloosa
together.
do when 2011 happened?
We united. We unified.
Were there not needs at that moment before that tornado happened?
Oh, 100%.
But it wasn't as intense a need. It wasn't as urgent a need. So when you get used to playing with the quarterback that has receivers that take it to the house, and Ryan, our defense gave up 31 points and we won by 4 scores and should have doubled them because we missed a chip shot field goal. Okay? It's hard for a 18 to 23-year-old to stay focused when you're up by 7 touchdowns. Or 5 touchdowns, and you know that he can go back out there and score if we give up 1. So they're not going to get any closer than what they are. Every time they score, we're going to score. And I think these young guys, that's hurting Alabama from the intensity standpoint of what you're talking about, or the focus standpoint. You call it focus, I call it intensity. I don't think we play with the same level of urgency that we played with in the past from the defensive side of the ball because of our offense being so good.
Let's go to Nick Saban on an assessment after 5 weeks, because I want to dive into this with a couple of different angles. Mark Houston, Ryan Fowler, Alabama tradition, as we cover the past, present, and future of the University of Alabama. This is the best coach in college football, giving us an assessment after 5 weeks of college football.
We've had some adversity to overcome. Obviously, we're playing some young guys on defense. We're not really satisfied with the way we're playing defense right now, especially today. Especially not being able to stop the run effectively, which is something we've always been able to do around here pretty well. So, and I think that's a team thing. I don't think it's about the defensive line. I don't think it's just about the linebackers. It's how you play on the perimeter, how you tackle on the perimeter, how you contain the ball, how you run to the ball. And we need to improve. I think offensively, we've been very, very productive, but we need to be able to not only control the tempo of the game with offense, we got to control the clock and the plays with the offense. Again, today we play 60-some plays of offense and 88 plays of defense. When you win 59 to whatever, and you score 59 points, and no different than South Carolina, when we scored 47 points, play 90 plays of defense. If you're really controlling the game, that really shouldn't happen. So we need to do a better job in that area, although we've been very, very productive on offense. But, if we play 20 more plays of defense every game that we play, you know, the cumulative effect of that is times 12. So that's a lot of plays, and it's a lot of wear and tear on a lot of players. And we've already lost some players, and hopefully we'll get a few of those guys back maybe sometime later on. Terrell was able to play a little bit today, which, you know, we were happy about that. But it's always going to be a little bit day-to-day with how he can go about what he has to do.
Martin, I'll let you react because you're just itching to get to this comment. Let it rip.
Well, first of all, I agree with Coach Saban. That can become a problem when you're running 20 plus more plays a game. When you multiply that out by, 12 to 15 games, all of a sudden you've played defensively the equivalent of 4 or 5 more games. Okay, and so that's crazy to think about. But Nick Saban act like that's somebody's responsibility other than him and Coach Sark. You cannot ask Tua Tagovailoa or the wide receivers to take a knee.
Get at the 1 yard line and take a knee.
Right. So when I hear him saying that, it tells me a couple things may be coming down the road. See, this is what I hear people say. Well, why don't you? I'm not going to call out the person, but they said people act like you shouldn't score when you have a chance to score. It's not about scoring. If we're going to average 5 to 7 plays on scoring drives, Nick Saban needs to start huddling and stop running the play from the line of scrimmage. Go back to the huddle. What? Answer this question, right? What difference does it make if you run 65 plays of running plays in balance or 65 plays of passing plays if you run the same amount of time off the clock? We're not throwing a lot of incomplete passes, so the clock will run the same. The problem is we run to the line, we hurry up, and we run the next play. Well, if you got an issue with your defense playing those that many plays, Coach Saban, stop doing that. Stop running hurry up. Number 2 is call the game a little different. Call more running plays, and we did a little bit Saturday. We did call a few more running plays, but that's on him and Sark. No one can change this except for them. We ran the ball. We averaged almost 7 yards a carry. That's controlling the game from what they can do. But if you go fast,
So is Nick Saban sending a message to his coordinator?
yes, he has to be. I mean, who else? What else can you change about the way we play offense than what you're doing? You can either go slower, go to the huddle and go slower, or call more running plays. Something that's going to run the clock more. And the only thing that's going to run the clock more is to throw more incomplete passes, or you go to the huddle, or you go to the line of scrimmage and just run the clock down. Whichever way you want to do it, doesn't matter. And you run the ball a little bit more. That's the only thing. We're going to average with Tua Tagovailoa, we're going to average 5 to 7 on scoring drives. It's going to be 5 to 7, or we're going to be punting. I mean, that's just, there's not going to be a 16-play drive if you're calling plays that they can execute.
Alabama's second in the country in yards per play at 8.3 yards per play. 8.3 yards per play when you look at the University of Alabama. But you're saying, did you point out something else? Oklahoma is number 1, by the way. So make sure that we cover
Who's the quarterback in Oklahoma?
Let's see. Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts. He's one of them.
Sorry.
Texas Tech or Ole Miss? Which one would you take?
Texas Tech was the number 2 defense, passing defense in the nation coming into that game. At 119 yards. At 119 yards a game, and Jalen had like 300 in the first half. As a matter of fact, the other guys never got that much. I mean, the 2 guys that won the Heisman. Wow.
No, we're not gonna stop the Jalen Tua debate.
No, we're not going to start it. Please, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move at a rapid pace.
Absolutely, please.
Okay, going back to the special teams side of things, because I've got to ask you the question. Let me do it on the other side, because I want to talk about what can be done on a special teams perspective. Alabama's not very good in punting. We're okay in returns on both punt returns, even though we had enough punt on Saturday. Jalen Waddle, I don't think that'll happen again. Kickoff returns were okay. We're just not very good at putting it between the uprights in punting. Our average of punting is 128 out of 130. 128 out of 130. What can be done We'll talk about it next on Alabama Tradition as we cover the past, present, and future of the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Porsche Osterhaus named best seafood restaurant in Alabama.
Yeah, I see it.
You got it there.
I got to make myself a middle note. All right, so we're here on the social networks, Martin Houston and I. We're having some fun. I mean, listen, it's a bye week. But how great is it? Say it again, Jacob.
I think Mayfield threw for like 500 on Texas Tech.
Texas Tech doesn't even know how to play
No,
defense.
no, I'm talking about Jalen was the first one to ever have a 300-yard half.
Oh,
Half. Yeah, see, he's not. See, Jalen's not playing in the fourth quarter right now. You know, Jalen's getting all of these yards. You know, they're averaging six. They got like 682
If
yards.
Jalen was the better quarterback,
Jalen wasn't the better quarterback.
If
Tua was the better
if he was the
quarterback.
better quarterback, he'd still be in Tuscaloosa. If you're
Jalen wasn't. Hey, Jalen.
he still deserves the credit.
Jalen wasn't the
We're
best
giving him some
quarterback.
credit. We're giving him
Jalen
some
may
credit.
be the best quarterback now, though, based on not that I wouldn't draft him. I wouldn't draft him into the NFL over Tua, but in his system, he may be exploiting his system better than Tua. That doesn't make him a better quarterback in terms of drafting him.
He's getting some recognition as a possible first round pick.
I've seen some of the
I've seen
projections.
a ton of mocks that have him
Yeah.
in the first round.
Well, I mean,
Well, it's based on potential because they think that they can correct something that he's doing. They'll fix it. They'll fix. And obviously Lincoln Riley's been able to.
He's an athlete.
yeah. Well, and I think the key for Jalen Hurts is what Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray do this year. I've already said Lincoln Riley's going to get offered the entire stadium in the city to come coach, and they're going to try to get Jalen just like they did with Kingsbury if those two have good seasons in the NFL. Somebody's going to try to make that transition to that type of offense, and they're going to bring Lincoln Riley and say, who do you want to bring?
I think you're right. Because there's going to be teams throwing so much money at Lincoln Riley.
So hey, what's our time left in? And we're on the social networks. We're having some fun. You guys can kind of see what happens
Behind the scenes.
during a radio break as we're setting up the next segment.
You guys are just under 12 minutes.
All right, under 12 minutes. Give me the next best Nick Saban clip. I know we had the assessment.
Do you have the?
My list is on my phone, which is being used for one of the social networks, so I don't have the list in
Well,
front
you're
of
going
me.
to talk special teams. I got special teams.
You got Nick Saban on special teams? All right, let's go there. Yeah, let's go there.
All right, we're coming back right now.
Okay, yeah, because Nick Saban actually breaks it down better than we can on this. Is this Green Day Basket Case? I think that's what it is, right? Green Day. It's Green Day Basket Case. Well, that's been a fourth quarter song for 20 years. Trust me, I don't know another song that Green Day plays, but
Really, it's October 1st. You're supposed to wake him up in September.
sometimes I give myself the chills. I want to set it up with Nick Saban's special teams, but I don't know what we can do when we talk about punting. Alabama's not a very good team special teams wise. Nick Saban, he looked like that he was going to get a compliment or trying to dig a compliment. Somebody was trying to get him to say something good about his football team. He was asked about special teams, and the best coach in college football had this response when asked about his special teams against Ole Miss.
I think special teams is really, really critical. We've been really good about not turning the ball over, but we did make some big plays on special teams today. I thought we were a little concerned about kickoff coverage. We did a good job early in the game and then he's catching the ball. We got all these alternative kicks today, so we didn't get a lot of these with the way we played on teams. But, boy, you have to get possession of the ball when they're punting the ball to us. That's the number one thing. You have to get possession of the ball. That's big field position change, like when you muff a punt. And that's something that we'll continue to work on. It hasn't been a problem in the past, and the guys that we have done a really good job of fielding the ball, but maybe we took off running on that one before we, actually got control of the ball.
And it was a low kick, and I think Jalen Waddle was getting ready to do something special with that football. Lost his focus for just a couple of seconds, or maybe even not even a second, a nanosecond, which is the smallest measurement of time, and it was off to the races, at least for the time being. It was reversed and brought back. But when you look at Alabama, special teams is not a strength. When you talk about place kicking, not a strength. When you talk about punting right now, we're 128 out of 130 teams. And I'm going to use this opportunity to start a GoFundMe account because I need to go to Australia. I'm going to find us a punter. I'm going to find us a punter. If you guys will pay for me, I don't care if it's rugby style. I don't care if it's off the side of the ankle. We got to find a way. J.K. Scott spoiled us for 4 years. I'm not asking for the next J.K. Scott. Maybe he's got a little brother out in Colorado that we don't know anything about. Find him, recruit him, bring him to Alabama. We got to do better punting. We're not a good special teams unit, and Nick Saban pretty much summed it up.
J.K. Scott definitely spoiled us, and it kind of makes you wonder will we feel the same way about the next guy after Tua because we're so spoiled, and will that poor kid be trying to measure up to that no matter who it is? And then as far as extra points, Ryan, field goals and all that, think about that one decision not to sign the Carlson kid. The Carlson kid's parents granddad was like a tennis player here at the university and wanted to come to Alabama. And Nick
Daniel Carlson and his brother continues to trend.
Yeah.
What the other school? I'm trying to think.
That other place that we don't mention on Alabama tradition.
Right.
But it's just that one decision. But to me, Ryan, what it tells me, there is no way that Nick Saban has traditionally recruited these guys and evaluated them. I believe he leans on the services for this guy. And I think that because he does, everybody is a number one guy based on who paid the most money. I'm just being real with a lot of these kicking schools.
Trust me, if you've got money, they'll make you into a kicker.
You can be the number one guy type of stuff. And then don't forget, we missed on, Pinero, or whatever his name.
Yeah, Eddie Pinero.
That went to, now he's kicking in the league. He was great at Florida. We thought we had him.
We had another guy from Arizona.
And so we're down the list. And then Boulevard was like the guy that we convinced ourselves we got a great kicker because we flipped him from Georgia. And the kid's not bad. He's just he's not great. So I just think that, but I do think that Riker is a guy that was recruited for his talent and his ability and not for the school. And I think Jeff Banks would have gotten him doing both of them extremely well before the season. If he wasn't injured, I believe this year we would have finally had a kicker, and I think he would have taken over the punting duties as well. And I think Alabama would have been fine because he's not going to punt but 2 or 3 times a game. And then he might kick 20 for extra points and kickoffs. But I think we're going to be okay at kicker when he gets back if we don't rush it.
All right, so we're also, we criticize, but we've also got to praise as well because Alabama is in the top 5 when we talk about touchbacks. So we look at a lot of different analytics from a standpoint of special teams. Return yardage. I thought Jalen Waddle's done an outstanding job. Anytime you can find a way to get him with the football. But I want to go back to that fumble just for a minute. We talk about Devontae Smith. We talk about Jerry Jeudy. We begin to look at all the different wide receivers. You look at them and look at them from so many different angles. Is there any chance that Jalen Waddle was pressing on that play?
Oh, absolutely, because you're a playmaker and you're not getting the same number of opportunities in terms of playmaking opportunities. And it was a low kick, Ryan, which is when they get a lot of good returns. So I think he not only was it not pressured, but him feeling pressure to try to make a play. It was also the fact that it was one of those that get here, hurry up, get here, ball, so I can get around this corner because I know that they don't have time to get out here because it was a low kick. And all of that together, I think last second he took his eyes off of it before he secured it. So, but what about the running backs, Ryan? Week before, Brian Robinson looked like a guy was trying to take it to the house every time. Saturday, he looked like the guy I thought he was. He was hitting the hole.
Well,
He was taking whatever you get.
So I'm sitting in the press box, and with your former quarterback from the University of Alabama, Jay Barker, and Brian Robinson broke a couple of really good, nice runs. And I said, Martin absolutely loves that kid. And I said, I don't understand the complexity that Martin Houston, because he's obviously toe to the rock. And he said, he pretty much backed you up and said, I like the kid as well. I think he's got his first couple of steps. You guys were starting to speak that football ease and stuff, and I don't really understand it. I just act like I did there for a couple of seconds. But he agrees with you Brian Robinson could be a really big-time running back in Tuscaloosa. You've been high on him since he came out of Hillcrest, which is locally here in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, and I think, and I want to give, no one's been harder on Najee Harris than myself, and I want to give Najee credit as well. Najee Harris is finding himself. He realized that, hey, I don't have to score every play. I can get into the rhythm of the game, and I think he's doing a better job of running and finishing plays. Our running backs, to me, did a great job Saturday. Ryan, I went through and I tracked the plays in the first half Saturday.
Okay.
The play calls.
Okay.
Look at this, man.
We've got about 90 seconds before we got to end the show.
And I may have missed one or two, but 13 runs.
Okay.
14 straight passes, the versions they have today. 8 play action passes. Only 4 RPOs in the first half. And 2 of those were like the swing RPOs versus the slant, jet sweep, and screen. Look at how many variations of offensive plays we had in the first half. They're putting a lot of stuff on film, a lot of different angles, a lot of different ways to get into.
So are you
plays.
saying this offense could even improve?
Oh, I think this offense is going to get even better because it's going to have. Remember, Nick Saban said we got to find something else that if they take the RPO away, that we have something else to go to. We're not going to have something else to go to. We're going to have several somethings to go to.
So that's the breakdown. I like that. It's a little bit of a balance there. 13 run, 14 pass, play action 8, RPO 4. We had a chance to feature Yogi Roth earlier this week in Tuscaloosa. He is a former USC wide receiver coach. He was with Sark and Lane Kiffin and that dynasty out of USC. If you have a chance, and you can go to the website, Tide109.com is the show that is our flagship for Alabama Tradition, and you can find Yogi Roth. Yogi described it in so many different ways how much more is left in this Sark offense. We don't have a prediction for Alabama and Bye. Bye University is the same team that upset Tennessee this past weekend. They were able to beat them 14-10, so congrats to Bye University. I don't think that they'll have the same amount of success in Tuscaloosa. I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practice going to be pretty tough in Tuscaloosa. Leading into Texas A&M, we're going to have a lot of things to talk about next week. Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, because he'll throw everything he can at this defense.
Yeah, and I think Nick Saban's spending a lot of this time, Ryan, this week. He's kind of in a quandary. He needs to rest his offense, but he needs the young guys to get more practice on the defensive side. So it's going to be interesting to see how he balances that out. But the bye week is much needed, and Nick Saban created enough of that coaching points with the way he played the game and called the game on Saturday.
As we go out with the guys from Fort Payne, Alabama, that wonderful group, Randy, Teddy, Jeff, and all the guys, we throw out Mark because he got thrown out a long time ago. We'll leave it at that. We continue more Alabama Crimson Tide football. We'll do it next time. Alabama Tradition, past, present, and future. And we thank all of our great affiliates throughout this area, including Fox Sports Shoals 97.9, WSBM 1340 out of Muscle Shoals, WCRL 1580, Kicks FM 100.3 out of Sylacauga, WYEA 1290 out of Childersburg, 105.3 Fox Sports in Jackson, Tennessee, and all of our great affiliates, WHEP down in Foley, Alabama, the talk of Baldwin County. Greatly appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you next time as we cover the past, present, and future of the Alabama Crimson Tide. All right.